600,000 soldiers stood ready to conquer Europe. Napoleon believed no force on earth could stop them. Then the sky broke open, and something unnatural appeared above them. Not birds, not clouds, not weapons they understood, just thousands of silent machines watching them from above. One dot in the sky became 10, 10 became 100, and then the horizon filled with a presence that had no shape, only intent. And within minutes, the greatest army in history stopped being the strongest force on earth, because war had just changed forever. At first, the soldiers did not take it seriously. They only noticed small dark dots moving high in the sky, strange shapes far too fast and silent to be birds. Some officers tried to explain it as enemy observation balloons, something familiar from past wars, but these shapes behaved in ways no balloon ever could. Without any warning, a French artillery line suddenly exploded, and yet there was no visible cannon fire, no clear direction of attack. Napoleon raised his telescope and looked into the sky with complete focus, but even his trained eyes could not find any explanation for what was happening, because everything he had learned about war, strategy, and enemies failed to explain the strange events unfolding in front of him. Once again, another artillery position was destroyed instantly, with no smoke trail, no enemy presence, and no sound of approaching fire. The entire army froze in place, not because they were afraid, but because they could not understand what kind of force they were facing. Every soldier knew one rule of war very clearly. You must always be able to see or locate your enemy before being attacked. But this time, that rule had completely broken down, because there was no visible source of danger anywhere around them. Napoleon immediately ordered counterfire into the sky, and the cannons responded with heavy blasts, smoke covering the battlefield. But when the smoke slowly cleared, the strange swarm in the sky had already changed position, avoiding every shot completely. It was no longer simple watching or spying, because now it felt like the enemy was predicting every single move before it even happened. One officer whispered in disbelief that this was not a normal enemy, but something that could actually understand their behavior and intentions. Napoleon refused to accept such a thought, because admitting it would mean accepting that human intelligence was no longer enough. It meant that traditional military strategy, which had ruled wars for centuries, might no longer have any real value in this situation. He ordered tighter formations, stronger defenses, and prepared cavalry charges, trying to regain control of the battlefield situation. But nothing worked in a normal way, because every action they took seemed to produce no meaningful response from the enemy. Supply wagons suddenly caught fire, and important bridges collapsed while soldiers were still crossing them. The army itself was still large and organized, but it no longer functioned as a single coordinated force. And that was the real defeat, because once an army loses coordination, it loses its true power completely. The massive army still stood strong in numbers, fully armed and trained, looking as disciplined as ever from a distance. But internally, it was breaking apart into separate groups that could no longer communicate properly with each other. One confused officer asked a question that no one could answer, wondering who exactly they were supposed to be fighting. But the battlefield remained silent, and there was still no clear answer, no visible enemy to respond to. Napoleon stood completely silent for the first time, realizing that none of his experience could explain what he was witnessing. At the height of his power, Napoleon had always believed that strong leadership could overcome any challenge, any enemy. But now, he was facing a situation where there was no visible opponent, nothing he could study, nothing he could predict. Instead, there was only a system that seemed to calculate and predict every action before it was even taken. It raised a terrifying question. What happens to civilization when soldiers and traditional warfare are no longer needed? In the end, Napoleon was not defeated by a stronger army, but by a future that had completely moved beyond him.